when this was announced, I was like super excited. I placed my pre-order for it, and then I had some reservations based on the pricing of it, but now that it's in, this is like, my perspective of what this device is has changed. So this is the Framework 16. This is the bigger, more kind of powerful version of the Framework laptop. The idea of this laptop has always been the dream, like a fully modular, customizable, user repairable, user replaceable device that in theory could last forever, right? If you just every few years replaced enough parts to refresh it and just keep it up to date, this could technically be the last laptop that you ever buy as long as there's enough parts for it. So before I do the disassembly, because I think that's a pretty important part of what we're doing here, I want to draw your attention to 3 things that I thought were just immediately interesting when I popped this thing out of the box. First is the keyboard, this RGB keyboard here. I'm not a huge fan of RGBs, but I've seen a lot of laptops, and the quality of an RGB lighting system on a keyboard is often a telltale sign of how good the device is. As silly as it sounds, but if a company puts in the effort and the just resources to make a good RGB backlighting system on a keyboard, you're off to a good start. And this thing is bright, it's vibrant, and the granular kind of gradient of it's just an awesome keyboard. Awesome lighting to the keyboard. Now the keyboard itself is very comfortable to type on. I can consistently hit around 100 words per minute on it, but I will say that in this particular kind of positioning or layout of the keyboard, it's not ideal for games. Like your hands are kind of really close to the edge, but you can reconfigure all of this stuff, which I'll show you in a second. But before we crack it open, I want to show you the AC adapter. This is the 180 watt AC adapter that comes with the package, and it is very compact. I just wasn't expecting to be this small. 180 watts in something super tiny. Now this device can handle up to 240 watts through that USB-C connection, but the AC adapter that comes with this iteration of it is 180 watts, because that's all you really need to juice the external GPU that would theoretically come with these devices. Just a quick note, this device here is an engineering sample. It's not like a production unit, so there's stuff that can theoretically change, but I've been told that it's really close to the kind of fit feel of the final product. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop this open. I'm gonna shut this down real quick. To get inside here, or at least to get to the point where you can kind of configure the keyboard and trackpad around, it's toolless. You don't need any kind of screwdrivers or anything. There's 2 little plastic tabs here. You pull them out, and that disengages the kind of locking mechanism for it. You pop this off, and if you'll notice, there's a series of pogo pins underneath here, and then underneath the trackpad itself, there is a series of contacts. So when you have the trackpad in a particular position, these contacts will hit those pogo pins. Now I'll just remove these 2 kind of metal plates off. These are basically just spacers. They're an aluminum surface, and they just kind of fill up negative space on the device. But if I wanted to reposition the trackpad so it's in the middle, you slide it up, and now this touchpad is using a different set of pogo pins underneath, and it's now oriented into the center of the laptop. Now, all of this can be operated in this fashion, in the sense that the keyboard and the macro pad can also be removed and worked in that same way. So these use these little, I guess, like tabs. You peel them off, or you lift them off, they come right off, and underneath you'll see, once again, the contact pins underneath there, and these touch these pogo pins, and the same thing with this macro pad. And this is all held down by magnets, so none of this is with tools or anything. It's all a toolless operation so far. So let me show you real quick. This can be repositioned into the middle, right? And then now there's some spacers you can use. These are just plastic spacers that you can position onto the side. And then you have the touchpad on the bottom, as well as the aluminum spacers that we saw earlier before. These go up, and then you lock in. So everything we've seen so far has been kind of held into position by magnets and then locked into place with this kind of plastic tab mechanism. It's really neat how kind of simple it is to get in and out of that kind of configurable state. Now to get even deeper, we have to use some tools. So in the box, they have, like the Framework 13, it's like a plastic, it's just like a simple tool. I'll show it to you in a hot second. All right, so this right here is the tool. It is I don't know, it's like a spudger on one end, and it's got a Torx screw that's got a other end that is a Phillips. So to get into this thing, I believe we need the Torx. Yeah, it's the Torx. So this is how it's done. To get in here, it's just, I don't know, a series of Torx screws, and these are captive screws, as in they're held in position, and you can't lose them. Am I missing more? I know it's also held down by magnets, so... Oh no, it's off. No, there's one left. There we go. All right, the inside of the device. So there's a single NVMe, 2 sticks of RAM, and an 85 watt-hour battery. And then on the left and right here are the speakers. These clusters have 2 speakers each, so there's a total of 4 speakers. But because the audio drivers aren't tuned yet at all, I'm not going to comment on the audio quality. But they are fairly sizable speakers. I do want to draw your attention to this thing right in the middle of the shot here. This is the, well, underneath here, it's like a plastic cap, but underneath here is the interposer. This allows the motherboard to interact with whatever rear modules you slot into this device. Now, my particular unit, that's a wonderful shot, my particular unit doesn't have an external GPU. This is just a pair of fans, and that's it. But they have a module available that if you want, you can get a discrete GPU. It's an AMD 7700S that allows you to connect it and now have a more powerful graphics capability on this device. So, you know, I should just show you how it's done. It's a little bit more involved. This is not like a 30-second hot swap. So that was one thing I need to be clear. I think in the presentation, like months ago when it first launched, I thought that you'd be able to hot swap this stuff out easily, right? In the ad, it just looked like you just like slap stuff in. It's like a 5 or 6 minute, probably more, operation to change whatever rear module you have connected. So if you want to, like, you know, swap out batteries or just quickly change to a different configuration, it's not as quick as you might hope, but it's still swappable. This takes a little bit of time. I might fast forward this. So this right here is one of the rear modules, and this one is the base default one. It doesn't have an external GPU or extra drives or extra batteries. It's just 2 fans, that's it. And the way that it slots into the system, it just goes into the back, you kind of line it up, and it's also held into position with magnets, but locked into place with those screws that are removed earlier. You slide it in, it goes in. You can do it while the device is open as well, and then you would screw that little thing back into position. So this is it's just like a bracket that mounts it. So the thing that I want to comment on, I don't know if it's like really obvious to people, but I need to bring this up. The reason why I think this is so smart and so ingenious is that the fans are built into this rear module. And so you can upgrade the thermal capabilities of the system through a module. Like if you think about every other laptop, this is usually, even like other modular or like attempted modular laptops, the fans have always just been part of the system. You can't change them out. And if you ever have any kind of new components, faster CPUs or faster GPUs, if they run hotter, you're boned, right? You're stuck with whatever thermal system the laptop shipped with last year or years ago. But here, it's swappable. And it's so smart. So as new fan technology comes out, or as, you know, the demands of your system changes, it's now exchangeable and or upgradable. So a real quick note on the airflow on this device. This, if you flip it around, would suck air in from the bottom. So the cooler air would be sucked in through there, and then they vent out through the sides of the device. So these slots here and here. So when you're using the device, it's just the hotter air would come out the sides of the device here. Now my unit does not have an extra GPU. I'm just running the regular AMD chip in here with the 7080M GPU. It's an internal GPU, very solid for what it is, good for like light to moderate gaming. But if you want something more powerful, they have that 7700S module available, and it would just clip into the back. You'd like remove that fan module that I just showed you, and this 7700S module would have more powerful fans and a GPU built into there, and then it would connect to that interposer thing, and then now you have a upgraded GPU. But I do think that there is concern about how powerful that GPU is. From my testing, the 7700S, at least on other laptops, isn't particularly powerful. It's similar to like a 4060, but that's something that can be improved upon over time. Now I want to draw your attention to what I think is, I guess, the main issue that I have with this device. It's not even an issue, it's just like a concern. So actually, I'll address something that I've talked about in previous videos. Right when I placed my pre-order, I talked about how I felt like this device was a little expensive in the sense that for the money, because my configuration was like about $2,000, and that's probably the kind of configuration that most people would get if you want to get an external GPU. Like it's around $2,000. For that money, if you take that $2,000 and then you also, years down the line bought the next GPU upgrade, you'd be around like $2,500, and you can get literally 2 equivalent laptops for that price. So there is that conversation of like, that's a lot of money to be spending on kind of like a gamble in terms of future upgradability. But having gotten this in, my perspective has changed in the sense that this is way better built than I thought it would be in terms of the components. The stuff that they've used, the really high quality RGB lighting on the keyboard, the screen being super bright with great color reproduction while being super fast. It's so good for games and media. All the components that we have available, like the individual components, are excellent, like way better than I thought they'd be. And it's built in a fashion that's really nice. However, I do think that there's a concern about just the build. So this device, why did I switch off this? Let's go back. This device is, you know what? I gotta remove this because I don't wanna bust anything. This device has an aluminum top shell and then a magnesium alloy bottom shell. So again, the material choice is awesome, but when it comes to a device that is as replaceable and user-friendly as this, you do lack rigidity. And I don't know if this is because it's an engineering sample. It could be just that. But I noticed it on the Framework 13 as well. And because this is a bigger device, it's got even more surface area that it has to deal with. It is hard to make a laptop like this and be upgradable and modular and all that stuff while keeping it rigid. This has a little bit of flex and play to the whole device. Everything about it, like the fact that this screen, like let's look at this screen real quick. The bezel of this screen is held down by magnets, and it's quite easy to pop it off. Take the tool, just kind of peel off a corner, and it's literally like a 5-second operation to be able to get access to the display panel. And you can swap out this panel if you want to. But the fact that they have a bezel that's not stuck down by glues and stuff, it's awesome. Makes it repairable, but the rigidity of the device takes a little bit of a hit. Now, personally, when I use this device, I don't care. I genuinely don't care because I recognize that when you have something like this, it's a consequence of having it built like this. But I do wonder if it somehow has an effect on how people perceive this product. Because when I've shown this device to my family members and friends, I didn't mention anything about modularity or anything like that. I'm like, what do you think of this laptop? Do you think it's cool? I think it's cool. They would look at it, and the first thing that everyone kind of picked out and was like, well, it feels cheap, or it feels like plasticky. That was their choice of words, and has nothing to do with it being cheap or plasticky. In fact, it's quite the opposite of that. Excellent materials, super expensive, not plastic, but it has that perception. But otherwise, this is so cool. It far exceeded my expectations in terms of the component choices and just how nice everything felt individually, especially that keyboard. Okay, there you have it. My first look at the Framework 16.